All right, so imagine, right? Like imagine a future where cancer treatment, it's like as precise as a guided missile, you know? It only hits the bad cells and it leave all the healthy ones alone. And get this, it might not be that far off with this new discovery of these things called poison exons.
Wow.
And then picture this, okay? Scientists, they're doing stuff straight out of like science fiction now. They've created a new, I don't even know what to call it, a new form of order, but it's inside a diamond, a time quasicrystal.
Yeah.
And this thing, it could like completely revolutionize technology, stuff we haven't even thought of yet. And to top it all off, think about that heat wave you just went through. You know, the one that had you sweating buckets? Well, guess what? It might have done more than just make you uncomfortable. There's this research suggesting that all that heat could be like secretly speeding up how your body ages, and that's a little scary, especially as the planet gets hotter.
Yeah, it is.
Welcome to the deep dive, everyone, where we take all the complicated stuff and we sift through it, pull out the really fascinating bits just for you. Today, we're diving headfirst into these three areas using some cutting-edge research, but we're not just looking at what happened. We're trying to figure out what it all means for our future.
Exactly. And we've really tried to cut through the all the complexities of these scientific breakthroughs to bring you the key takeaways. We're going to be talking about how we fight diseases and how that might change in huge ways. We're going to talk about like the basic stuff of matter and how we understand it. And we're going to be talking about this environmental challenge, you know, that's growing and directly affects how healthy we are. So where do you want to begin?
Let's start with what sounds like, I don't know, a total game changer in how we fight cancer. Reactivating a self-destruct mechanism that's already built in. And it's all about these poison exons, right? What exactly are they? Like, how do they do what they do?
Well, think about our DNA.
Yeah.
It's basically a giant instruction manual.
Right.
So exons, they're these specific sections in that manual, and they have the code for building proteins. Proteins are like the workers of our cells. They do all the heavy lifting.
Got it.
But here's the thing. These poison exons, they're like these hidden passages in the instructions. And if they end up being included when a protein's made, then the protein that comes out, it's messed up. It doesn't work right. And sometimes that can be deadly to cancer cells.
So hold on. These poison exons, they're already there in the cancer cells, like from the beginning, but they're just like off. It's like a weapon that the cancer cell doesn't even use.
Yeah, exactly. Cancer cells, they're all about survival, right? And when they're growing super fast, all out of control, they figure out these ways to silence these self-destruct sequences or skip over them entirely. It's like a survival tactic, you know, at the molecular level, letting them basically bypass their own kill switch.
That's wild. And the really cool part is scientists are figuring out how to like turn that kill switch back on. They're using these, what are they called? Antisense oligonucleotides? It sounds so complicated.
I know. It sounds like a mouthful, but the idea behind it is pretty elegant. These ASOs, they're these little pieces of DNA or RNA that are made to stick to messenger RNA molecules. Think of mRNA like a temporary set of instructions copied from the DNA blueprint. It's sent to the part of the cell that makes proteins.
Okay. I think I'm following.
And the ASOs, they're like molecular Velcro. They're designed to latch on to a specific mRNA molecule. And in this case, what they do is they mess with the mRNA in a way that forces the cell to include those poison exons when it's building the proteins it needs to grow.
So let me see if I've got this right. It's like the cancer cell is this broken machine with a self-destruct button, and it's figured out how to like disable. And scientists are basically finding a way to push that button again, like at the genetic level, so the cell ends up building its own broken parts, right?
Exactly. You got it. And what's really exciting is how precise it can be. You know, unlike chemo, which hits every cell that divides quickly, including the healthy ones, this method targets the instructions inside the cancer cells themselves.
Right.
And that makes us hope we can get rid of those awful side effects that come with cancer treatment.
That would be amazing. And the research suggests this might be especially good for those really tough cancers that just don't respond to the usual drugs. It could even lead to personalized medicine. So how would that work, like tailoring treatment for each patient?
Well, you see, as we learn more and more about cancer, we're realizing that even if it's the same type of cancer, there can be big genetic differences between patients.
Ah.
So how a cancer cell turns off its kill switch could be different from person to person. Personalized medicine in this case would mean figuring out exactly which poison exons are silenced in a patient's tumor, and then making an ASO that's designed to reactivate those specific ones.
So it's not just one drug for everyone. It's like a custom-made key for each person's cancer.
Yeah, you could say that.
And if they can do this with these poison exons, could they use this RNA stuff to treat other diseases too?
Absolutely. RNA, it
Yeah.
turns out, it does way more in our cells than we thought.
Mm-hmm.
This success in manipulating RNA, making it trigger something specific in cancer cells, it opens up all these possibilities for treating a whole bunch of conditions where genes aren't working right. It's pretty amazing what they're doing with RNA-based medicine these days.
That is amazing. Okay, let's switch gears now. Let's go from the inner workings of cells to something that sounds like it's from Star Trek or something. Creating a time quasicrystal inside a diamond. So for those of us who, maybe weren't paying attention in science class, what's the difference between a regular crystal and this new quasicrystal thing? And then like where does time come in?
Okay, great question. So you probably know about regular crystals, things like salt or snowflakes, right? The atoms in those crystals, they're arranged in a very organized pattern.
Yeah.
And that pattern repeats itself perfectly in 3 dimensions. It's predictable. Now, quasicrystals, they were discovered not that long ago, and they're also very organized, but their patterns don't repeat in the same way in space. Think of it like a mosaic with all these intricate patterns, but they don't repeat, and they fill the entire space without any gaps.
Okay.
But now we have a time quasicrystal, and this one, it takes the idea into a 4th dimension.
So the pattern isn't repeating in space, it's repeating in time. My brain is kind of melting thinking about that.
Exactly. In a time quasicrystal, the system has a pattern or a behavior that repeats over time, but not in a regular way. It never goes back to the exact same starting point, but it's still very structured.
Wow.
Imagine a dance with moves that come back again and again, but the order is always slightly different. It was just an idea for a while, this theoretical concept, and now they've made one in a lab, in a real material, a diamond no less. That's a huge step forward in understanding quantum systems that aren't in equilibrium.
Okay, you've definitely got my attention. So how did they even do that? I remember something about lasers and a diamond.
Yeah, you're right. Researchers use these really precise microwave lasers to interact with electrons inside a special diamond. Diamonds, they have this incredibly strong and regular structure of carbon atoms, a lattice.
Right.
Super stable and isolated, which makes it perfect for seeing these delicate quantum things happening. They pulsed the lasers in this special oscillating pattern, and the electrons inside the diamond, they responded by oscillating too. But their oscillation wasn't repeating perfectly. It was structured, but not repeating, forming this time quasicrystal state.
So the diamond itself isn't changing shape or anything, but the quantum state of the electrons inside it, that's what's showing this weird non-repeating order in time. It's like they're doing this dance, but the steps are never quite the same.
Exactly. The diamond is like the perfect stage for this quantum choreography. And what's really mind-blowing is how precise they had to be with the lasers to make this happen, to get this coherent non-equilibrium state that just keeps going in time.
Wow, that is mind-blowing. And you're saying this could be applied to like super futuristic stuff, right? Quantum computing and things like superconductors. How does a time quasicrystal get us closer to those things?
That's where it gets really interesting. In quantum computing, you have qubits, which are like the basic bits of information, right?
Yeah.
But these qubits, they're super fragile. It's easy to disrupt them, which limits how long they can hold on to their quantum states. Now, time quasicrystals, they're inherently stable because of this temporal order they have.
Yeah, okay.
And that means they could offer new ways to protect the information in qubits, making them last longer. And that's a big deal if we want to build real, usable quantum computers.
That would be huge for like the power of computers, right? What about superconductors? Those are materials that can conduct electricity without any resistance, right?
Yeah, exactly. The connection with superconductors is still kind of up in the air,
Yeah.
but it's definitely exciting to think about. Superconductivity itself, it's a quantum thing. And it involves these complex interactions between electrons. So by studying time quasicrystals, we might learn things, principles or mechanisms that could help us design new materials that are superconductors.
Yeah.
Maybe even ones that work at way higher temperatures than the ones we have now.
Wow. You also mentioned this discovery could change how we understand matter at a fundamental level. What did you mean by that?
Well, think about it. Most of what we know about the phases of matter, it comes from the idea of order in space, systems that are in equilibrium. Time quasicrystals, they're different. They have order in time, and they're not in equilibrium because they're constantly being driven by the lasers.
Right.
So studying these weird states of matter, It might make us rethink what a phase of matter even is.
Yeah.
And it could reveal some totally new rules about how complex quantum systems behave over time.
Yeah.
And the fact that they made this thing inside a diamond, a real material, it means these aren't just like abstract ideas.
Yeah.
They could actually have real-world applications.
That is incredible. Okay, for our last topic today, let's get a little more down to earth, but with a discovery that's, well, a little unsettling. It's about how extreme heat affects our health, especially how it might speed up aging, particularly in older folks. And it's not just about feeling hot and bothered, right?
No, it goes deeper than that. This research is saying that it's doing real damage. We usually think of aging as just how many years we've lived, but on a biological level, it's about our cells and tissues slowly breaking down.
Mm.
And extreme heat, it puts a lot of stress on our bodies, like right down to the cells. And this research suggests that being exposed to these heat waves over and over again, it can actually speed up the aging process, especially for older people whose bodies can't handle the stress as well.
So it's not just heat stroke or feeling bad in the moment. It's like there's actual damage happening that could affect how we age long term.
Exactly. Scientists have been looking at these things called biomarkers of aging in older adults. Think of them like measurable signs of how old your body really is, how healthy your cells are. And what they've seen during these extreme heat events is an increase in cellular stress, damage to DNA, and problems with important metabolic processes.
Wow.
It's like the cells are working overtime and getting damaged because of the heat, and all that damage adds up, making the body age faster.
And so this faster aging, it's not just about wrinkles or gray hair, right? We're
Well-
talking about a higher risk of getting diseases as we get older and our bodies getting weaker.
Right? This accelerated aging, it can make people more likely to get chronic diseases that come with age, things like heart problems or neurodegenerative diseases.
Yeah.
And it can weaken the immune system, making them more likely to get infections. It could even affect their thinking and memory over time. It's a serious problem that impacts the whole body.
This has got to have big implications for everyone, right? Especially with cities getting hotter because of climate change.
Yeah, it does. As cities experience these longer and hotter heat waves, it's pretty clear we're going to see more heat-related illnesses, more people going to the hospital, and, unfortunately, more deaths, especially among seniors and people who are already sick. This is going to put a huge strain on our healthcare systems and make healthcare more expensive.
Yeah, that makes sense.
We really need to find effective ways to protect people and come up with long-term plans for our cities.
The research talks about things like creating more green spaces in cities and better cooling systems. Those seem like they'd definitely help.
For sure. We have this problem called the urban heat island effect, where cities trap more heat than the areas around them. More green spaces like parks and trees can really cool things down naturally. We also need to think about public cooling centers, making sure everyone can afford air conditioning and having systems that warn people about heat waves early on. These are all important steps to take.
Right.
And even individuals, they can do things to help themselves. Staying hydrated, finding shade when it's really hot out, and using air conditioning if they have it, these can make a real difference in dealing with extreme heat.
So with the planet getting warmer, this isn't just an environmental issue. It's a public health crisis that's going to hit older people the hardest. We need to be talking about this more and making changes to how we deal with it, right?
Absolutely. This research shows us that we need to take climate change seriously and come up with ways to protect our older population from the effects of heat on their bodies. And it needs to be a team effort. Individuals, communities, and the government, we all have a role to play.
Well, this has been a fascinating deep dive, even though some of it was a little scary. We talked about cancer treatments that could be amazingly precise, this totally new form of matter that could change technology forever, and the very real threat of aging faster because of rising temperatures.
I know, right? And what's amazing is how all these different areas of science are expanding our knowledge about the world, from the tiniest parts of life to the nature of time itself, and even how our changing planet affects our own bodies.
Exactly. We're learning how to manipulate the building blocks of life and matter, how our changing climate affects our aging process. These discoveries show how fast science is moving, and it makes you wonder what else is out there waiting to be discovered. What other secrets are hidden? What other rules of the universe are we about to uncover? And how will those discoveries change how we see ourselves and the world around us? It's something to think about.